It looks like miners might have struck gold as things are really starting to heat up around the classic games catalog on Nintendo Switch. Last night, data miner Cappuccino Heck uncovered a list of 22 SNES games buried within the Switch NES Online app files as part of a new update. We covered that as soon as it broke, and it seems like SNES may be making its way to Switch sooner than we expected. But today, another data miner going by the name Oatmeal Dome on Twitter, which phenomenal handle. He's found something even more interesting.
Zach, to say the least, the offering for the NES games through the Nintendo Switch Online have been disappointing and just lackluster for you and I in particular because we don't play them that often. The SNES is something that I know we both would love just because we grew up with that a little bit more than the NES offerings, and there was a list of 22 games, and it's exciting to see that potentially we have other consoles coming to the online portion of Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, so let's dig into the details here. The NES Online app is running off of basically the same emulator that powers the NES Classic, and that is codenamed Kashi. Now, they uncovered that there also is the Canoe emulator within the Switch, which is the SNES Classic emulator, and that would line up with the list that Cappuccino Heck found last night. But there are also two other emulators on here, Hiyoko and Count. Now, nobody has any idea what those correlate to, and translating them won't help because, as you can see, Kashi and Canoe, as far as I'm aware, don't have much to do with their correlating systems. But it seems to me like this is really prepping the waters for a far expanded classic games catalog that may shape up to be more and more like Virtual Console months and months after we already declared that dream dead.
Do you think that Nintendo does like a complete 180 on that? They said that the NES games were going to be the focus, and you think they just like flip a switch and they're like, hey, never mind, now it's like kind of everything. I mean, maybe not everything. It's still just like Ford. Is one of these maybe Game Boy? Is one of these like GBA? I mean, who knows?
Right. Yeah. It's interesting to think, could this be N64 and GameCube, just the normal console progression, or perhaps they're going to bring in some of what they did previously with like Game Boy Advance and maybe even Game Boy. You know, we've heard rumors of like, oh, there could be a Game Boy Classic in the works. And if the first two emulators match up with their classic consoles, is this also hinting at future classic consoles that are in the works? And, you know, the idea of a complete 180 seems unlikely to me. I feel like it would still be tied into the online service and still try to be supporting people, you know, purchasing memberships to that. But yeah, it would be very weird, and I don't know how that balance would work of like, okay, we're releasing 3 NES games and 2 SNES games and a Game Boy Advance game. Like, it becomes very messy, and granted, this could be prepping the waters for something that doesn't take shape for a long time. But yeah, like, the actual nuances of how it would work to me are still very confusing.
I mean, I don't want to be the one to kind of put a damper on everything, but there's a chance we don't even see this play out in any way. Like, this is just code that was data mined. It could just never be used whatsoever, and it was just put on there just in case, or you never know. It could have just been like a copy pasting from other emulators that maybe are coming with a classic console at some point, like was mentioned. So I wouldn't get my hopes up too much just yet, but I think SNES is like super likely to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo, initially, that was something that they discussed, and I think that will happen. That list seems pretty remarkable, and it'll be interesting to see if we hear of anything else that gets data mined in terms of other lists or other games. The SNES list, just to give a brief comment on that, is odd to me because it has a smorgasbord of weird games, like including Super Mario World plus Super Mario All-Stars seems very strange. I mean, Perfect World scenario, they do the same thing for every console that they had for the NES, where they have an app that includes a decent starter pack, and then they add them in month by month. There's no reason they can't do that. They did that previously. It just, the rollout, I think, because it is attached to the online, maybe is a little weirder, since it's not like, oh, you can purchase them separately. It's like, okay, well, I'm waiting for this to get good before I dive in. But I think to Nintendo, they view it as just, adding more and more content as the months go. I'm going to say I do feel that this is pretty darn legitimate. I think the fact that we have the games list, we have these emulators that are, you know, the emulators they should be. It's not something super random, and that there are 4 I think this is going to be utilized, and I think it will take shape. And I wonder if this is tying into the rumored coming direct. We see more and more, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but a push for like, where is the direct and what is it going to be about? They've already unveiled dates for things like Yoshi's Crafted World, Final Fantasy X, 10-2, and 12. Could this be part of their big year 3 push to get people excited? And maybe could it even be part of a coming Switch revision plan that has an emphasis on classic games? I think there's a lot of options here, but Gabe, I really am starting to buy into, like, okay, it's time to sound the alarm. I think this is going to be the time that Nintendo maybe does turn on the Switch.
I mean, I hope so.
quite literally.
I mean, people want these games on Switch for whatever reason. I suspect that for a lot of these people just wouldn't play them as much. I know out of the 22 that like I read in the other video, I'd play A Link to the Past, I'd play some Super Mario World, but other than that, I'm cool on these older games that I've, either A, experienced to death already, or just have no interest in, really. So, for me, I'm going to kind of just temper my expectations. I would be really excited for like GameCube stuff, or even Game Boy Advance stuff, because so many amazing games are in GBA. But yeah, I'm just going to go in with expectations that are not crazy, and then hopefully be surprised. That's just the approach I'm going to take.
Yeah, I think that these other emulators are for N64 and Game Boy Advance. To me, that makes the most sense. I would love if it was N64 and GameCube, but I think that that's probably maybe asking a little too much. I want to bring up the fact that we've been discussing the 3DS kind of being on its way out. We've been discussing a new version of Switch coming sometime in 2019, and I want to reference back to the Nintendo 3DS Ambassador Program, which was a way to make up for initial purchasers feeling a bit burned by them, changing things up mid-cycle. Now, this one almost, this many years down the road, I don't feel is as egregious, and who knows when this Switch releases, but I do wonder if that is going to be the plan. Could this also tie into some sort of similar program? And most likely it does relate to the online service, but is there a chance that they do something akin to that 3DS Ambassador Program where, hey, if you're an initial Switch purchaser, as a thank you / make good on this Switch Pro, we are going to soup up your system with a lot of Nintendo's favorite nostalgic titles.
That would definitely make things a little bit easier for people, right? It'll make sure that the pill goes down a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, it was great on 3DS. I don't know if you partook in that, but it was really fun to get a lot of those titles and kind of just get a quick surge of nostalgic fun across multiple platforms. Hey, they dropped the price $80 and you get 10 or so Ambassador games. That was really fun and a nice way to at least, like you said, soften the blow. I don't know that that's what this is for, but I just wanted to throw it out there as a possibility since so many of these things are kind of coming to a head at once. I really think, Gabe, this is something that gets mentioned in the Direct. I think Nintendo is far smarter than putting something in here that isn't supposed to take shape until E3 or isn't supposed to take shape until 2020. I think they know what they're doing. Data mining happens constantly with this platform. So to me, the fact that it is just showing up, it's just being uncovered, maybe it really is part of a looming Direct. Maybe it's part of a looming change and plan. I guess my only question then would be, why? Because Nintendo is not at a point where they really need to make amends with anyone. The system's selling great. Smash Brothers crushed it. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is more fun than we thought it would be. And they have an insane lineup for 2019. So why now? I don't really know, but it does seem to be lining up, and I think that we might finally be realizing the excitement of a Nintendo Switch that carries the history and nostalgia of Nintendo alongside all of these new great games. Do you think that Hiyoko and Count are in fact related to N64 and Game Boy Advance, or do you think this might amount to a whole bunch of nothing like Gabe?
Zach, I kind of wish that we had more information about what code in games and software like this is usually like. Is there always just a bunch of stuff in there that doesn't get used, that just happen to be thrown in there for plans that might have been canceled or plans that just aren't coming into fruition anymore? Or is the fact that it's in there mean that it's going to be used at some point? I wish kind of somebody was a code expert in the comments and would let us know a little bit about how that works, but I would love to have a sample size to how stuff like that usually goes.
Yeah, if you do have any of that info, please let us know and definitely give us your opinion on what you think is about to go down. I'm pretty excited. I'm over here kind of starting to get really ready for something really cool to happen, and hopefully it does. We'll have you covered if and when it does, so make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest and greatest from the Switch and whatever these new sneaky emulators are going to be used for. Hit that notification bell if you want to be the first to know, and follow us on Twitter for all sorts of fun games and more. We've got a link in the description below, twitter.com/theswitchforce. Until next time, though, thanks again for watching, everybody. A fantastic day for myself and Gabe. SwitchForce out.